Hi everyone, welcome to the Hobby Hatch. Today I wanted to delve into something that's really plagued the minds of Pokemon players, enjoyers, and fans through many years, decades even. So what exactly lies beneath a Dugtrio? Is it a worm? Is it a strange frog-like creature? We're about to find out. For this diorama, I wanted to show a cross-section of a cavern which the full body of the Dugtrio will be lying in. And to do this, I just used my hot wire cutter with a prodding tool and pretty effectively just carved and scratched out all that foam. Then to cover up the foam texture, I created a mix of plaster, Mod Podge and paint. And I smeared that all over the surface like I was icing a cake. Once that was done, I went over with a damp brush just to give it some surface ground texture, what you might find in a cave, lumpy bumpy but stratified, not just kind of blobby mess, although I mean at this point it still kind of looks like a blobby mess. Then I got on to the 3D prints, which were these really cool little Dugtrios, Digletts and Stalagmites, which will get spotted all over the top of the diorama. Next, I moved on to really the main part of this diorama, which was the Forbidden Pickle, as I dubbed it once I had sculpted it, which I made from a ball of aluminium foil and a mixture of green stuff and milliput, roughly 1:1. It has the same moldable characteristics of green stuff, however it is a lot softer and way more workable. So I rolled that out and wrapped it around the foil just to save on the amount of putty I was going to be using in the long run. Then I cut the Pokemon off their base and using little noodles of milliput, I sculpted them in to make it look like they were a part of the piece. Then, using a sharp sculpting tool, I cut out a little segment of putty where the mouth was going to be. And I carved out all of the aluminium foil with my X-Acto knife to leave a nice hole for where all the teeth are going to go. With that smoothed out, I then moved on to giving it a pair of lips, if you could call them that. At this point, I also stuffed in an eye, which I scavenged off of a 3D printed Beholder model. I think it looked like it was a good fit, considering that model has sat in a box for about 2 months now. Then for the teeth, I wanted a really gross look, so I used some wire, which I cut into short lengths and just stabbed into the putty. With the Forbidden Pickle done, I moved on to adding all the 3D printed and sculpted terrain pieces. I used some cork to add some variety, just a bit of different texture, since all of the stalagmites were quite smoothed over. With that all glued in, You can kind of see that there is large gaps underneath, but you'll see how I fix that in just a sec. So for the inside of the cave, I made a massive mistake and I used plaster hole filler, as I thought it would be easy enough to mold around and create a nice texture. And whilst it was, it absolutely does not like sticking to anything except human skin. But with that in, pushed in the forbidden pickle and filled in all the gaps underneath the surface elements. So that was done. I wanted a little channel to show the connection between the creature below and the Dugtrio on the top. And I decided the easiest way to do that would just be to mark and cut it with a sharp knife, which I then carved out and filled, much like the cavern below, with plaster filler to give it some texture. I then created a tentacle using green stuff and a piece of wire as an armature. So I just rolled that roughly into a tube. Nothing too perfect. It is, after all, a tentacle. To add some texture, stabbed into it lots of little holes with the end of a sharp sculpting tool. With all that done, I moved on to painting. So first I primed the entire thing black, and this time I didn't go for a zenithal with a whiter or a lighter color, grey or white. I just went straight in with the airbrush with a light brown. I think this was Mornfang brown, and I covered all the front and top surfaces. So for the top, I wanted to do a directional kind of style. It's much easier with the airbrush to do this. I have no idea how I do it without the airbrush, maybe with a rattle can. But I wanted to give the small inclination that it's dark at the far side of the cavern where the Dugtrio is. And from the front, I wanted it to look a little brighter, so I used Baneblade brown, whichever one popped up there, to give the idea that there's light shining into this cavern. Then gave everything a quick dry brush with a nice yellowy brown colour. Quite bright, so it caught all the nice edges on the stalagmites and on those little bits of cork. After that, to bring back some depth, I hit everything with a nice Null oil wash, just black wash. Cover the entire top surface and side, as well as the inside of the cavern. And after that, to bring back some of the pop, went back over with a light dry brush, I think again of Baneblade brown. And then I moved on to painting the actors in this scene. So the Dugtrio got a nice light brown. And so did the forbidden pickle. Then to give it some variation, I went over it with a really light, really watered down brown colour, just to give it the inclination that it's lighter at the top. And then I got everything with a dark Null oil wash. Pickle got the same paints, same style of painting to get the same effect. And then I moved on to the little details, so the noses and the eyes of all those little Dugtrios and Diglets that were attached to the monster in the cave below. The teeth got a quick hit of blood for the blood god to make it look like it's just devoured something. And then I moved on to painting the eye. So that first got a coat of black paint, and then using white ink, I just wanted to hit where the brightest part of the eye would be. So this will be a glowing eye. And this white should come through in the middle a lot brighter than the surrounding to kind of give off a bit of a gradient. Achieving this gradient, I used airbrush, more white ink. I might have overdone it with the white ink, but it was much easier time getting those smooth fades of color and getting it to look like a light was emanating from the eye itself. And I went with a nice blue color, so this is contrast athematic blue through the airbrush, which works really well, which tinted all the white areas that I previously laid down and made it look like that light was emanating blue. Then went back with the ink and dropped it in the center just to show where that light was coming from. Finished up this section by giving all the eyes glossy varnish to make them shine and to bring back some of the visual interest of the top layer and the floor surfaces of the cavern. I gave everything a run over with some browns and yellow pigments. So I just brushed these all over. Then to add a little bit more variation, I added dark yellow ochre, and that was just spotted around. I also painted this little Psyduck to be the victim for this diorama, and he will be situated in front of the Dugtrio. And lastly, all I had to do was paint the rim black, and it was onto the glamour shots.
Stay calm.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you liked what you saw, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and share it with your friends. It really helps out the channel. Also got an Instagram, so if you like seeing little projects like this, head over there to see all the sneak peeks and weird and wonderful things I've been working on. Anyway, thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.